The Showdown, the first Showdown of the year, is on tap in Nashville. And these are my favorite races because, let's face it, we don't get to see the best of the best go head-to-head very often. We have to wait till Pro Motocross to see that every single weekend. So who is better? The East guys, the West guys? I always think about what this does to the points, right? If you're RJ Hampshire in the West Coast Championship, if you're Hayden Deegan in the East Coast Championship, these races can be your best friends because this is your opportunity to make up gaps in points. If you can go out there, put your best foot forward, win this race, and maybe your rival gets a 5th, a 6th, or worse, you can completely flip the championship picture. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on the championship leaders too. They know that big gaps in points can be made and lost this weekend, and they have everything to lose. So I think it just adds a whole new level of intrigue to both the East and the West championships.
Yeah, you just saw Tom Vial's only down 4 on McAdoo, and Deegan's down 13, which seems like a lot with 3 races to go, but 2 out of the 3 remaining East races are these showdowns. But as you and I started bench racing about this, I brought up the point that these showdowns, we get weirdo winners a lot. I remember Jeremy Martin out of title contention, winning an Indy years ago. I feel like this is like a Joe Shimoda, Nate Thrasher style event. We'll have a lot more data on this coming up with Clinton Fowler later. And you said you think a lot of that is pressure, actually, on the title contenders.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where they can just go in and ride carefree oftentimes. I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think it's going to go that way this year. I don't think you're going to see the outlier racer like a Marchbanks or a guy that's not in the championship win the race. I think it's going to be one of the guys because the results have been so clear who are the best guys. So I think it'll be either one of the top 3 in the East or one of the top 4 in the West. If it's anyone outside of that, I will be very, very surprised because those 7 riders have really shown themselves to be the best of the best in this 250 class thus far.
Oh, it's going to be so good. A make or break weekend if you have to make up points in the championship. Okay, back to this championship. We will talk about it more in depth with Clinton Fowler and some stats coming up, but the tie, I can't emphasize this enough. We don't get this very often. Chaseston, by the way, is still lurking, just 15 points back. More on that in a moment. But I don't know. To use the Vegas analogy, who do you bet on here? Jet, who's fast, or Cooper, who's an experienced veteran and just figures out a way to get it done? This is so hard to know what's going to come next, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, choose your fighter. I did not think we would have this situation with 4 rounds to go. It really felt like Jet was on the precipice of running away with this thing. But in hindsight, we should know better. This is what Cooper Webb does. He hangs around. He finds a way. He's the ultimate competitor. When he's up against the wall, that's when he brings his best stuff. And I think that's what we saw from him last weekend in Foxborough. We saw the best of Cooper Webb. And Jet Lawrence could say, well, yeah, I'm still able to go faster. I beat him in the heat race. But Cooper Webb's, he knows when it's time to perform, get the start, put in perfect laps, and you get all the points. So it's kind of a convergence of 2 different techniques and styles of going about this. We're going to see which one wins out over the next 4 weekends. It is a phenomenal time to be a fan of Monster Energy Supercross.
Now, another interesting subplot that is happening in these races. When this year began, the anticipation was Tomac versus Jet, not as much Webb. We thought we knew what we had with Cooper Webb because an SMX on a Yamaha, he was not good. He wasn't even close to Jet, so we weren't even thinking about this. We wanted to see Eli battle Jet, and honestly, over the last couple of weekends, we're finally getting that. They had a good run, the middle race at the Triple Crown in St. Louis, and they battled each other coming through traffic at Foxborough. Now, Jet got the edge on him both times. He eventually passed him, eventually pulled away. But I would love to know what Eli Tomac has seen around the kid for the last couple laps, what he analyzes with his dad, John, and the Monster Energy Star Yamaha team will probably never hear what they're thinking, but they're analytical people. I would love to know the notes that Eli's taking with this new riding style.
Yeah, I think everybody's in the same boat as Eli. That, Jet has come in and he's doing things not completely differently, but it seems like he's just leveled up. He's just doing them a little bit cleaner, a little bit quicker. He's putting combinations together that most riders aren't doing. So yeah, it's just the evolution of the sport. Every so often we see this rider that can really force everyone to raise their game. And I go back to last summer. We asked Eli Tomac at Feld Media Days, did you really pay attention to this Jet Lawrence undefeated season in Pro Motocross? And he said, well, not really, but when he got to 12-0, I had to sit up and take note, right? I had to pay attention because this was clearly something that was forcing my hand to pay attention to. So I think ever since then, it has been a note-taking situation. He just happens to be a little bit closer to it than he was last summer.
And there's another rider that's been in that same situation quite a bit, Chaseston. Now look, it has been kind of trendy to dump on Chaseston. He couldn't beat Jet outdoors. He couldn't get the SMX title from him. It hasn't been a complete slam dunk switching to KTM. Hey, he's only 15 points down. He could win this title again. How about that?
Yeah, he's riding better than he has been. And I still point to the fact that I don't think he has that raw speed that he had in 2023. That was really his calling card, and he leaned on that when he needed it. We haven't seen that yet. He still hasn't been the fastest qualifier yet, which is shocking in and of itself. But if you're looking for a silver lining, the riding is improving, right? You could argue that had he passed Ken Roczen sooner, had he had a few more laps in Foxborough, he could have been your winner. We know how close he was to winning in Seattle. So I think you're always trying to understand the situation. You don't want to be overconfident, but at the same time, you need to stay motivated and stay positive as we go down the stretch here. And I think his riding gives him plenty of reasons to be, happier than, let's say, he was earlier in the season.
One last thing. Let's get to the track map at Nashville. Take us for a ride and see what we're in store for on Saturday night.
Yeah, so I always find it interesting because you'll see little subtle things that the SMX track crew has incorporated from previous rounds. The first thing that jumped out to me was the configuration before the whoop section is almost identical to Indianapolis, where we saw Jet Lawrence jumping into those whoops. It has that little corkscrew with the wall jump, then the whoops. We'll see if that comes into play. Do they jump into the whoops? That was really the story leaving Indianapolis. Another thing, the setup before the finish line is identical to Birmingham. It has that little hook in it, bends backward down the start straight and into a tight 180. Let's hope that the Monster Energy lady with the 30-second board will stay off the track and we don't have to hear the "oh no" from Weege again. But yeah, you always see little subtle nuances that the track crew brings back. And does it play a role? Maybe, maybe not. But these riders are going to look at that, and that line, that whoop line especially, is going to be something they're going to think about right away. Oh, this is the same. Can I take advantage of that same line that I used back in Indianapolis?
Personally, I love the 180 berm turn after the finish into the start stretch. It's one of the few areas in Supercross where the inside sometimes still works. Most of the time, everyone goes to the same line. It's either a defined inside or a defined outside. There could be some cat and mouse, especially with a 250 East-West Showdown. I would not be surprised to see guys running into each other trying to decide where to go in that turn. It's going to be a really fun weekend.
Be careful, Cody Shock. Be careful, Cody Shock. That's all we can say.
It happened. It happened. It's true. If you want to watch the show, 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern time on Saturday. That's Race Day Live on Peacock. We'll be racing at 7 o'clock Eastern time, Peacock.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.